Good morning, students. In the last class itself, we have started Kabuliwala by Rabindranath Tagore, and in this class, we are going to have further discussion or further explanation of the same lesson Kabuliwala by Rabindranath Tagore. So, in the last class, we have already met the three important characters. First one is narrator, Mini, and Kabuliwala. And Kabuliwala already he has been called by Mini, that is that daughter of narrator, and immediately after getting the sound from narrator's house, Kabuliwala he comes to the house of narrator, and as he comes, the girl she disappears, she goes out, she goes completely out of sight, and the narrator he makes a little purchase of dry fruits. So the Kabuliwala, of course, he has come to the house of the narrator. First reason to sell the dry fruits. Of course, he was the dry fruit seller. So just to sell the dry fruits, he has come to the house of narrator. But the main intention, main reason, or main attraction to come to the house of narrator, it was mainly that a little girl Mini. So Kabuliwala, though he had come especially for that Mini, but Mini, she was out of sight. She was not at all there. She was not visible. So he was very curious. He wanted to meet Mini. So he mainly asked the narrator, okay, where is the little girl? And I thinking that Mini must get rid of her false fear, had her brought out. But she stood by my chair, looked at the Kabuliwala and especially his bag. He offered her nuts, raisins, some dry fruits, but she was not at all tempted and only clung the closer to me with all her doubts increased. So when that Kabuliwala he asked about that Mini, the narrator himself brings her Mini from inside the house. Mini because she has gone inside the house, and just to get rid of the false fear of Mini, that this Kabuliwala, because of his very different variety of dress, she was very afraid of. Mini was very afraid of his dress, and she was very afraid of his bag, mainly because she had, as in the last class when I told, she had a very blind belief mainly told by illiterate Bhola, that Kabuliwala in his bag he used to carry 2 or 3 kidnapped children. That is, she was so afraid to think. Definitely, if Mini, she has been thinking that if she goes near that Kabuliwala, somehow Kabuliwala he may kidnap her and keep Mini in that bag where already 2-3 children are there. So because of that fear, she was not at all ready to come near or come at the sight of that Kabuliwala. But father himself, that is the narrator himself, just to get rid of all those fear, he mainly called her. But Mini only has been looking at bag, thinking definitely a few children, they are already there in that bag. So Kabuliwala he offered her nuts, raisins, dry fruits. Though dry fruits, that is, they do tempt the children, kids, but Mini, she was not at all tempted, though she had a little bit of temptation. But because of that fear, she didn't take anything. And when that is that Kabuliwala, when he that is when he gave or offered all those things, she thought definitely by offering all these dry fruits, Kabuliwala had a plan of kidnapping her and keeping her in that inside the bag, so she didn't get anything. Thus it was the first meeting between Kabuliwala and Mini. That is, in the first meeting, Mini, she was not at all ready to be close with that Kabuliwala because of the fear, and even though she has been tempted by the dry fruits, still Mini, she didn't take anything offered by that Kabuliwala. Thus there was such a big gap, wide gap between Mini and that Kabuliwala. Okay, let's see how that gap has been bridged and how that gap has been mended. Okay, one morning, however, not many days later, as I in the sense of the narrator, I was here the first person narration, so narrator is I. As I was leaving the house, I was startled, surprised, shocked to find Minnie seated on the bench near the door, laughing and talking with the great Kabuliwala at her feet. at her feet. So, but a few days later, so in the first meeting, they both were very sorry, that Minnie, she was very afraid of Kabuliwala. She was not ready to talk with him. But in the very a few days later, that narrator, he was shocked to see both Minnie and that Kabuliwala. This time Minnie, she had become very close. Both of them has been exchanging so many jokes. They both had such a fun. Both were laughing in such a way as to think that they both were close friends. They both had become so close, and to the shock of narrator, he didn't understand anything. He was so shocked. He didn't understand anything. How they both had become so close. That is, in the very next meeting itself, Minnie and Kabuliwala, they had become so close. And later, the narrator realizes that is the secret between the friendship between these two people. So, in all her life, it appeared, my small daughter had never found so patient a listener save a father, except a father. And already the corner of her little sari was stuffed, filled with almonds, raisins, given by the visitor, that is, by that Kabuliwala himself. So, last time when Kabuliwala had, when he wanted to give the or offer the dry fruits, she was not ready to take because of that fear. She was so scared. But this time, though no other were there, only both are there, Minnie and Kabuliwala. But they both had become very close, and she has been treating Kabuliwala as a very close friend, as one of the family members. And Kabuliwala already has offered or given that dry fruits, almonds, raisins. And since during those period, even the little girls, small girls, they used to wear the saris during 1890s, 1900. So during those days in India, even the little girls, they also used to wear the sari. So her sari, the corner of her sari, it was stuffed. It was filled with the almonds, raisins, dry fruits given by that Kabuliwala. But that narrator felt very, that is, without giving any money, how can one take the dry fruits? Because as we all know, dry fruits, they are very costly. And this Kabuliwala, he has his main source of income, that is only by selling the dry fruits. So, okay, if he, that is a narrator, if he gets the dry fruits without paying any money, free of cost, he feels very, it is not at all suitable. So, he wanted to give the money. Why did you give her those? I said, and taking out an 8 anna bit. Here 8 anna, that is in earlier days 8 anna ಅಥವಾ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ 8 ಆಣೆ. 8 ಆಣೆ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ 50 ಪೈಸಾ. ಸೊ ಅರ್ಲಿಯರ್ 1 ಪೈಸಾ, 2 ಪೈಸಾ, 5 ಪೈಸಾ, 10 ಪೈಸಾ, 20 ಪೈಸಾ, 4 ಆಣೆ. 4 ಆಣೆ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ 25 ಪೈಸಾ and 8 ಆಣೆ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ 50 ಪೈಸಾ. Of course, nowadays 8 ಆಣಾ, 8 ಆಣೆ, it has lost its complete value. ಓಕೆ, ನಾವು 8 ಆಣೆಗೆ ಚಾಕ್ಲೇಟ್ ತೊಗೋತೀವಿ, ಆದರೆ 8 ಆಣೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಈಗ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೈಟ್. ಈಗ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗೋದೇ 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿಂದ. ಸೊ ಮುಂಚೆಲ್ಲ ಏನು 8 ಆಣೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡ್ರೈ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ಸ್. ನೌ ದ ನರೇಟರ್, he didn't want to get the dry fruits free of cost, so he wanted to give the money, and he gave 8 anna or 50 paisa, and he handed it to him. The man, Kabuliwala, accepted the money with a demur, with without dimmer, without any disagreement, and slipped, put it into his pocket. So thus that is later the narrator he went outside due to some work, and later 1 hour later when the narrator returned home, a very big scene has been created. That 8 Anna, it has created such a big that is scene. The narrator in the beginning he didn't understand what is going on. Later he realized, yes, all this scene or fighting or quarreling, especially between Minnie and her mother, especially because of that 8 Anna given by narrator to Kabuliwala for the dry fruits. Okay, alas, on my return an hour later, I found the unfortunate coin, that is that 8 Anna, had made twice its own worth of trouble, for the Kabuliwala had given it to Minnie, and her mother, catching sight of the bright round object, that is 8 Anna, had pounced on the child with, "Where did you get that 8 Anna bit?" "The Kabuliwala gave it me," said Minnie cheerfully. That Minnie's mother, she was so shocked, that is to see 8 Anna in the hand of that Minnie, mainly because a small child, how can she get 8 Anna? Of course, as I already told, nowadays 8 Anna, it hasn't any value. But in those days, especially during 1890s or during 1900, 8 Anna, it had its own value. So that Minnie's mother, she was so surprised to see 8 Anna in the hand of that Minnie. So mainly she asked, okay, who gave that 8 Anna? But Minnie very happily, very cheerfully, she told, yes, Kabuliwala gave that to me. He gave me dry fruits as well as money. So she was very happy. But the mother, she didn't understand why should Kabuliwala give the money to that Minnie. Okay, if he gives dry fruits, okay, nothing surprising, mainly because he is the dry fruit seller. But why should he, that is apart from that dry fruits, why should he give that money to Minnie? So he didn't understand. So she has been inquiring, mother, she has been inquiring, questioning that Minnie, mainly to clear her doubts. "Oh Minnie, how could you take it from him?" I, that is narrator, entering at the moment, saved her from impending disaster and proceeded to take my own inquiries. So thus that narrator, he realized the complete scene. Actually, the Minnie's mother, she had no idea who has given that money to Kabuliwala, and that is the narrator himself has given that money to Kabuliwala, and Kabuliwala, who was not ready to take the money for the dry fruits given to Minnie, he has returned that Minnie mainly to he has returned the money mainly to Minnie only. So the mother, she had no idea at all, but the narrator, he realized every scene, he realized every incident, that is that Kabuliwala, of course, though he had given dry fruits to Minnie, it was mainly out of friendship. It was only out of his great love, as a token of love, as a token of great friendship. He has given that money to, he has given that dry fruits to Minnie, and in return, he was not ready to take any money. But since that narrator has given the money, Kabuliwala, he had accepted, but later he returned that money mainly to Minnie, mainly because he knows very well the dry fruits were given mainly as a token of love, friendship, not for to get any profit. So the narrator, he realized all these things, and later he convinced his wife or Minnie's mother about all these things. Thus, the great friendship between that Minnie and Kabuliwala, step by step, day by day, it started to increase. It started to become very strong. And it was not the first or second time I found that two had met. The Kabuliwala had overcome the child's first terror by a judicious bribery of nurse almonds, and now later they both had become very close friends. So every day Kabuliwala he used to meet that Minnie, and in his every meeting he used to give the dry fruits to that Minnie, but in return he didn't accept anything. He didn't accept any money, but as already told, only as a token of love he used to give all those things. And they had, that is, whenever they used to meet Minnie and Kabuliwala, they had many quaint jokes which afforded them much amusement. Seated in front of him, looking down on his gigantic frame, a very big frame, in all her tiny dignity, Minnie would ripple her face with laughter and begin, "Oh Kabuliwala, what have you got in your bag?" Actually, from the first day itself, she had a doubt, she had a question about his big bag. Why should he carry such a big bag? And what is there in that big bag? One thing sure, that is, children, they were not at all kidnapped children, they were not at all in that bag. And she was confirmed Kabuliwala was not a kidnapper. So she was convinced in that particular case. Still she was very curious to know what has been kept in that bag by Kabuliwala. So as usual, when they both had become very close, so she mainly asked, "Okay, what is there in that bag? What did you keep in that bag?" And that mountaineer, that Kabuliwala from Kabul, Afghanistan, he mainly just to amuse that girl, to entertain that girl, Minnie, he mainly told a very big elephant. Not much cause for merriment perhaps, but how they both enjoyed the witticism. And for me, this child's talk with a grown-up man had always in it something strangely fascinating. Then Kabuliwala, not to be behindhand, would take his turn. "Well, little one, and when are you going to the father-in-law's house?" Actually, that is father-in-law's house means mainly to husband's house. So, and in those days, that is during in 1890s or 1900, child marriage, it was common all over the India, and it was very badly practiced most part of India. So with that intention, Minnie, she was only 5 years child. So with that intention only, since child marriage was very common during those days, so Kabuliwala mainly asked, okay, that is mainly to tease her, he mainly asked, "Okay, when are you going to your father-in-law's house?" But this girl, she hadn't any idea of a father-in-law or about child marriage, mainly because even though most Bengali maidens during those days, they had the idea of child marriage and the concept, the meaning of a father-in-law's house, husband, they had all those ideas. But this girl, she hadn't any idea, she hadn't any knowledge, any information, mainly because the narrator and his wife, being educated, being somewhat modern, they hadn't told anything about child marriage, and it was not their intention to marry that Minnie in her young age. So they were not in favor of a child marriage, so they hadn't told anything about child marriage. Because of that, Minnie, she hadn't any idea, any knowledge when Kabuliwala asked about father-in-law's house. Though that Minnie, she was surprised or she was confused. That is, here is one particular word. She was bewildered. She was completely confused. but was not ready. She was not ready to show her confusion. So, and since she hadn't any idea, very quickly she asked the same question very tactfully to that Kabuliwala. Okay, are you going there? But among the people of Kabuliwala, or people from in those days, for men of Kabuliwala's class, this what we say, that is father-in-law's house, it has a different meaning. It had a different meaning. It had a double meaning. Here different meaning mainly means that is father-in-law's house to them means jail, prison. So when that many, but she hadn't any idea. She had no idea about the meaning of Kabuliwala, the concept of that father-in-law's house. So that is mainly just to tease him. She mainly asked, okay, are you going there? But Kabuliwala, for him, as already told, father-in-law's house mainly means jail. So with that concept in his mind, father-in-law's house as a jail, with that concept in his mind, he mainly told to that girl that he would shaking his fist at an invisible policeman. I will thrash means beat. I will thrash my father-in-law. Hearing this and picturing the poor discomfited relative, Minnie would go off into peals of laughter in which her formidable friend would join. But Minnie, she didn't understand anything. And when that Kabuliwala, in his gesture, when he mainly told, definitely he is going to thrash the father-in-law. He is going to beat that father-in-law. But Minnie, she didn't understand anything. She didn't understand why should Kabuliwala beat his relative. That is, for her father-in-law means some relative. So she didn't understand why should that Kabuliwala beat his relative father-in-law. But for Kabuliwala, father-in-law means policeman. So police. So father-in-law's house means jail. So since that is, but she started to laugh mainly because of his gesture. So thus day by day their friendship, it started to grow and they both become very close friends. Okay, thank you. Take care.